Hello and welcome to the Teachers Wellness Coach YouTube channel and also the PASTEL Pod. So this is your weekly snippet of health and wellness inspiration for female teachers. My name is Kat and I'm on a mission to make healthier living easier, simple, realistic and actually fun in the process. I'm also here to remind you that wellness is about progress and not perfection. And I'll be giving advice as to how to sprinkle pockets of time for yourself throughout your busy teaching day every single week. So if this is something that you think would be really helpful for you, it would also be really helpful and I would really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. So this week we're going to be looking into January and just talking about January, and spring has now arrived as well, and we're just going to be talking about goal setting and the goals that we set in January, and how to then approach these goals for the rest of the year. So I'm using January and February as kind of just the rehearsal stage. So we are resetting for the new year. We're going to be doing this properly, intentionally, and also with a whole lot more self-compassion. So spring has finally arrived, the sun is shining, which is so nice. The light is back, and yeah, it's time just to realign and reassess those goals. So I'll just talk you through the process that we'll be going through, and I really hope that you do find this useful. So I just wanted to first of all reflect on why January isn't always the right starting line. Now I'm all for like a new year, and I love January. I love the end of the year in December. When you reflect on the year, you think about what's working, you think about what's not working, and then you plan for the year ahead intentionally. But January isn't sometimes the most inspiring time to get started with your goals. You've just come out of December. It's very emotionally intense. It's quite socially packed, financially stretched as well. And then suddenly you're just expected to just turn your life around and be operating at peak performance with literally zero runway into the new year. So the problem that we can have sometimes with January goals is that they often come from a reactive place. So they're ambitious, which is great and wonderful, like all for this with being ambitious, but they're not always grounded in how your life actually functions once the year then gets going. So the habit science also agrees with this. So one of the golden rules of habit theory is that you can't change everything all at once from an unstable place. So you need to return to the baseline routine first and then start layering in your new habits on top of that solid foundation. So the case for a spring reset, sometimes the timing was the problem and not you. A real life September reset proved more stabilising than any January overhaul, and here's why spring works just as brilliantly. And we know this as teachers as well. I'm all for the academic calendar year, but you now have real data to compare yourself against as well from January and from February. So after a few months in the year, you actually know what your workload looks like, you know what your routine is looking like, you know which habits have then genuinely stuck, and what your realistic capacity is with your new goals and your new intentions that you've set. So you're building just from evidence, and it's not then just imagination and pulling it out of your ass. So your body is ready. We have more daylight, which then genuinely affects your circadian rhythm and energy levels. Honestly, the difference today with the sun shining, it has been incredible. So you're no longer then in the full winter survival mode. Your biology is on your side for the first time this year. And then the academic calendar, as we know, it just makes sense for us teachers. So there's a reason why teachers and students then just feel a shift in September and also the springtime. You're aligning resets with natural turning points, and the calendar dates as well, and it just feels more aligned and actually more realistic, I guess, with your goals that you're actually setting for yourself. January is also a crazy time. I mean, when isn't as well for a teacher, but March, the days are longer, it's lighter for longer, and it just feels like summer is finally on its way. Now, this is a quote which I absolutely love. It's trees don't bloom in January. Nothing in nature decides to reinvent itself in the middle of the darkness. Coldest stretch of the year. Don't put pressure on yourself to then do the same. I think this is so true. January, just the weather sometimes just doesn't set you up for being your best self that you can be. And also, it's not just the weather in the UK as well, it's just different cultures around the world that celebrate their new year in early spring, because spring is then when nature itself signals. So now is the time for the fresh start, for the forward motion, to be putting things into place. So you're not too late, you're right on time. Just think about January and think about February as easing into the year but now it's really go time just with your goals. And this is the year of the fire horse, which I've seen all over Instagram and stuff, and I absolutely love what it's about. It's a year defining like energy and intensity, passion, drive, but with that as well, obviously being reminded to stay attuned to your body's limits, and then reserving your energy, and reset wisely. Don't just do it out of, thinking that you should do all of these things, because again, realistically, it's not going to happen. So just resetting wisely, and forming a routine that you can genuinely stick to for the rest of the year. Okay, so step 1, we are going to just do an honest life audit. So I just want you to carve out 1 hour. I did this over the weekend. It was end of February, moving on into March. I put my phone away, get your notebook out, and just work through these 4 key questions. So just get everything out of your head and onto paper. I say this to my clients all the time, so that you can then actually see what you've been trying to carry into 2026, and also what things could we change. So first of all, what did I introduce? This could be new habits, new routines, new commitments, standards. Write them all down, look at your goals so far, and get them out onto paper and see the full volume of what you then actually took on for this year so far. And the second, what is actually working? So circle the things that are out on your paper that you've written down, circle the things that feels, that they're genuinely maintainable and align with your real life, and not then just your imagined one. So these are then the keepers. These are the ones that you're then going to be continuing with for the rest of the year. And then third, what was too ambitious? So when you were setting your goals for 2026, sometimes we can set the bar too high, which is a great thing, but again, we just need to be realistic with our goals. So if a goal requires a completely different version of you to then execute it, it doesn't need shame, it just needs some scaffolding, some structure in place, and then just more of a realistic starting point. So maybe just moving the benchmark or the timeline along to later on in the year with those certain goals. And then finally, the 4th point is what has changed. So external factors always play a huge part in our role with our goals. So acknowledging what has shifted in your life isn't then making excuses for it. It's being mature and honest with yourself. So an example that's come up, for me that I can think of, which is very fresh. One of my goals this year is moving my business over to Dubai. And also client meetup in Dubai, because I've got quite a lot of clients in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and we were going to have a client meetup this Saturday. And because of everything going on in the world right now, those goals aren't achievable because I can't get to Dubai because my flight's been cancelled. So there's things that are external factors that are out of your control that you genuinely can't change. So it's important to go back and just, really think about the external factors that have then played a part with your goals. So step 2, we're going to edit your goals. We're not going to abandon them, and we're not going to cross them off and forget about them. We're just going to edit, and we're going to tweak and change. So most of us treat goals in a very black or white way. So it's either, yes, we are absolutely smashing our goals, or we are doing nothing about it. But we just need to find that middle ground, and it's just editing your goals. So rather than thinking about the all or nothing trap, so 6 gym sessions a week, I'm only hitting 3, so I'm just not going to go at all. That's then such a constant cycle of just feeling exhausted and just setting yourself up to fail, which we don't want, because it's just going to make you feel like shit, to be honest. So we want to find just that middle ground. So 3 sessions a week might still be a vast improvement on where you were, and it is sustainable, and you can actually then go to the gym or train at home 3 times a week, and then you can build to 4 once then 3 is solidly within your routine. So the same applies with everything. It doesn't have to just be the gym, it's also your diet, it's your reading habits, it's sleep routines. And something that I used to do in the past is, I would say I wanted to read 2 books a month. Now it's like, okay, I'm just going to read 2 pages a day, and because that's more of a realistic habit that I can actually then stick to. So instead of then complete perfection, just focus on 1 or 2 high impact habits that you can then actually maintain, and then go into your yearly goals, amend them honestly, and then just feel zero guilt doing so. There's nothing more annoying than going into your goals every single day, looking through your goals and just knowing that you're not achieving them. So you're just going to edit them and go through, which is a very, very important step. Step 3, we're going to redesign your weekly calendar. Now, this sounds so boring, and this isn't the most glamorous, but it's the best way to then actually achieve and make it realistic, and it's the most structural. and they almost always revolve just around your calendar. So just ask yourself this: if someone followed you around for a week, would they believe that you're serious about your goals? So are your workout sessions actually then blocked into your diary, and have you set time out for that? Have you planned to then do your weekly food shop? Do you genuinely have the capacity to then read for an hour a day? Or, is it more realistic to then just read for 5 minutes a day? So just think about things that you can do to then just put into your calendar, block time out, that's then actually structural changes. And I know it's not very exciting, but once you get these habits secured, it's going to be a lot easier to then stick to this, and this will then become your new normal. And this is where all of these tiny small habits, they become your new normal, and that's then what spirals and snowballs into your huge results that you're after. So thinking about protecting your mornings before the day then takes over. I'm reading the 5 a.m. Club book at the moment. I've read it before, but I really wanted to just think about how I could use my mornings to more of my benefit, I guess. So it's thinking about having clearer mornings, and honestly, like, when you have a great morning routine, it really does set yourself up for the rest of the day. Thinking about buffering time for exercise, that it can't then be the first thing to then go off of your list of things to do. Restructure your weeks where you're proactive and not then constantly just reactive, and then just being far more intentional and selective about what you then agree to, and protecting your time as well. So there is no universal starting gun here, so you are allowed to choose your own reset point. Just because January's been and gone, it doesn't then mean that you have to wipe out the rest of the year and then you can't start until January 2027. So some of the most powerful shifts then happen or are completely ordinary but unscheduled dates. So not because the calendar then says so, but it's because you have then decided that you are no longer willing to just drift through the rest of the year. So if the first months felt slow, that is absolutely okay, and it doesn't mean that you have then failed the rest of the year. So you're testing habits, you're gathering data, and then you're figuring out what actually fits around your life. And things that haven't fitted around your life at the moment, that is okay to then get rid of them if they're not then aligning with your day-to-day plans. So your action plan this week, just ask yourself what's working, what isn't, and what actually matters for the next few months. Go into your goals and edit them, and don't feel guilty for then changing your goals. So choose fewer things and then just focus on steady growth, and just layer these one habit at a time. And also 60% towards a real maintainable goal is so much more powerful than 0% progress towards an imaginary perfect version of yourself that, to be honest, is never going to arrive, because there is never a perfect version of yourself ever. So just, think about spending the rest of this week just thinking about your goals, setting that time aside, setting that hour aside, and this year it can be starting now, and it doesn't then mean January and February is a fail whatsoever. You are just reassessing, you're realigning. So this year is going to be great, but only if you then get real with yourself and then adjust based on what you actually then need. So I really hope that this video has been useful for you. I would massively appreciate it if you did subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, and I will be putting out another video to you guys next week. So thank you so much for listening.